Restaurant Unstoppable. What the most successful restaurateurs know that you don't. I'm happy you mentioned the small agenda because I feel like you could probably give us some advice on how to conduct an efficient meeting. Like, what does that look like? Because I feel like meetings, we can get lost in meetings sometimes. We just end up having a meeting for like every little thing. We end up having like 5 meetings a week, and what's the best approach to meetings in your opinion?
So I think it's really about focus. I mean, my personal preference, I love meetings that are less than an hour, ideally is like 30 to 45 minutes. And people have to know what's expected in the meeting ahead of time so that they come prepared.
So have an agenda.
Right. You have an agenda. It should be a pretty consistent, like I would call it a standing agenda, right? It has maybe 3 or 4 bullet points. For us, we work around the concept of like 4 Ps. So the bullet points we always focus on are people, profit, PR and marketing, and place. And place is either growth or repairs and maintenance. It's the buildings.
Do we get mentioned in that PR meeting by any chance?
Yeah.
Nice.
So if you have like, and as an example, those 4 things, and when you're talking about profit and you're in the restaurant level, you're talking about, hey, your target for hourly labor was 16%, but you ran 18%. Let's look at what we could do to change the schedule next week to, it's usually slicing off 15 minutes here and there. It's not cutting a whole person.
Yeah.
And so helping to like mentor and coach your team to make those efficiency tweaks that are going to get you there.
And what's the power when you get people weighing in, when you get all these minds adding to the common goal? Like, what happens? I'm assuming, I don't want to make too many assumptions, but it sounds like there's a weigh-in opportunity here from your team.
Yeah, so for us, initially it was a very small team, then, 2 locations, 3 locations. We would all meet together. So they would have their own meeting for their restaurant, and then, once a week we'd have kind of a group meeting with just like the highest level managers. I think for us, one of the really critical collaborative pieces that came up was always about best practices. When somebody was really good at running labor, as an example, and that person can share not the real tactics, like, hey, what I do is on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, I don't bring the dishwasher in until an hour later, and that saves me, $30 in the week, and ultimately on my weekdays, that's helping my labor by this much. It's those small tactics that are specific that people can really wrap their minds around that will make them make the change versus their, kind of leader who's just telling them like, hey, go figure it out. Yeah.
And again, the model to your meetings, and I think this is great. You had the 4 Ps, people, profit, PR, and marketing, which is 1. And then what was the last one?
Place, which is like repairs and maintenance, and in our case, growth, because we have new places that we started growing towards, right? Yeah. And so that would be, kind of things we'd focus on. And then we actually, the way we do our meetings, we rotate that theme. So it's like week 1 of the month is people, and week 2 is PR, and week 3 is profit, and week 4 is place. And so a different person owns each of those meetings as we grew, right? So ultimately we have an HR director and they own people, and we have a CFO and she owns the profit one. And so they come to that meeting prepared. At the restaurant level, it's smaller, but if they're going to have a conversation about profit, which is really looking at sales versus expenses, the kitchen manager has to come prepared to know, how did I run on back of house labor this week? How did we do versus our sales projections? The GM has to be able to say, this is what we projected last week versus what we did, and this is what I'm projecting for next week, and this is why. So I need you to make these changes in your schedule, or I need you to up your ordering pars, or I need you to really cut back because we over ordered in this area and we have plenty of product that's going to get us for the next 3 days.
I love this. I'm loving the detail. Thank you so much. I hope you know that I'm smiling underneath this mask right now. So
again, I think this is like the kind of things that go back to being an engineer, because in the engineering world, it's all about the details, and you get into the details and you help people understand why the details matter.
Exactly. And they compound. All those details compound for sure.